Welcome to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. The podcast that will connect you to resources regionally and nationwide to engage them in open, honest discussions so that we can inspire the growth that you need to chase the experience you want. So strap yourself in because here we go. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Season 3 of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. I'm your host, Sean Smith, and we've got Tony Bennett back with us today. This is the 4th of 5 episodes, and today we're talking all about screening. So help me welcome Tony. Tony, how are you, sir?
Good, Sean. How are you?
Oh, it's winter in Ohio, and it's almost Christmas, so.
Yep. So
no snow. We had a good bit of snow. I think we had like 4 or 5 inches. We had a storm come through earlier, about a week or so ago, going into gun season. Actually had some good snow. Then it warmed up, rained, and now all the snow's gone. So,
oh, we still got almost a foot of snow.
We still have feet of snow. He said,
"Yes, yeah." There's snowmobiling and everything up here, so
it's all right. You guys are way further north than us, man. So. Well, man, it's been a while. Actually, when this airs, this will be after the first of the year. So, I'm sure there's been some updates and stuff that's happened with you. And any good updates that you got for the people before we get started in this episode?
Nope, just getting ready for 26. So just trying to, get everything lined up, and then, no new additions in our food plot line, just because everything that we have right now is working great. So there's no changes in that. So
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Keep it simple. So,
yep. Right. Well, everyone, just to get you caught up. So this will be, like I said, episode 4 of 5. We got one more episode that we're going to have to logistically figure out how we're going to do it. But so far we have talked basically at a basic overview. That's episode 1 of food plotting, some do's and don'ts. We laid out a pretty good, kind of a very simplistic step plan for you for food plots, rather large or small. Episode 2, we dove into those micro plots, and the hot takeaway from that was creating that hot local bar scene for all your deer with, try to hit that trifecta with that small little plot. And then we covered the destination plots. We're looking at larger, more than an acre, where we're actually looking at long-term feeding of the deer versus, what we would call, quote unquote, a kill plot. And today, we're going to be talking about another vital part of food plotting, and that's screening. I think that's a pretty good recap. I think we're ready to just dive right into this. So I think with every other episode, we start with this. Tony, when we start talking about screening, what comes to your mind? What is screening? What are we doing?
So screening essentially is it's more of like a visual barrier, not only for the deer, but even the hunter himself. Our goal of screening is basically to create a wall that the deer basically unable to see, either yourself or other deer. This also creates a type of security for the deer, just visually, so they could see, short distances. And essentially for the hunter side, it's one for your access and for drawing deer into a specific area, making them feel more comfortable so you can pull off the shot there. So
it's pretty good breakdown for what screening is. I think most people understands what, when you say screening, kind of what we're looking at here. But so screening is an interesting topic because you're probably looking at plants that are going to grow tall enough to be effective at screening. Am I correct with this, or
yeah, yep? There's certain varieties of seed there that grow extremely tall. There's anything from annuals and perennials. Switchgrass is one of them. Sorghum. We can get into even miscanthus. I mean, there's a whole bunch of different varieties of plants there. And then you can always do, I don't know if you want to call it more mechanical, but more of, taking trees and creating pinch points with trees and whatnot by dropping them, and, just different ways of doing that. So, but the best I won't say the best way, but the easiest way is usually the plant. So you put the screen how you want it set up, so on and so
Mhm.
forth.
Yeah.
So,
So the mechanical version, I've seen this done before, and we've actually done this ourselves. We went through and hinge cut a section of woods. It was all
mhm,
junk trees and stuff. We went through and hinge cut because we wanted to create more bedding in that particular area. So we'd open up the canopy and stuff and get more new growth. And when we were going through and did the hinge cutting, what we did was we kind of laid it out the best we could to where there was an entry and an exit into it, to where there was only one
yep,
way and one way out, and everything else was all blocked up. To kind of give the not funnel the deer, but definitely give them a predetermined route that they're gonna have to take to get in and out of there. So
yep,
yeah, I've seen this. I've done that before. I've been part of that. One of the things I've not done though is creating screening using like vegetation and stuff. So
okay,
I've seen this done, and I know there's a lot of products out there today that this is for screening. This is what we use, and I'm sure you have your screening blend as well.
yep,
That you like. Um, when you're looking at that, what are some of the let me ask you this then.
mhm,
What is your preference for screening? What is your out not mechanical, but actual like what you're
okay.
planning? What's your preference?
So my preference, and this is based off of my experience using and setting these things up, is you want to find some type of annual. And now people are gonna fight my head off on that one, but if you start off on an annual the first year, it's usually a fast growing type of screen. Um, Basically, what that'll do is dictate whether the deer use it or not. So annual screening usually it's costs a lot less than if you were to go like get miscanthus or even if you were going to set up like a conifer or pines type setup. So that takes a long time to grow, and that sometimes that could have a negative effect on if the screening actually works or not, if the deer are going to do what you're thinking you want them to do. So my preference always is to go with some type of annual screening, fast growing like sorghum or Egyptian wheat or something like that. And basically what that'll do is that first year when you set that up, if the deer do what you want them to do, or gives you the right access to get in your stand, get out of your stand without the deer running away. I mean, that's usually my preference for people is to start off with an annual to see if it is effective for you or the deer themselves. Um, and then the following year maybe you could step up and go to switchgrass where you have that come back year after year, year after year. And then you'll always have that barrier set up, and the deer will utilize it or essentially help you too. So
Right.
that's usually my suggestion for
Now,
everybody that's just
uh,
starting off. So
yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I mean,
it's common sense, but some people overlook the common sense aspect of it, and they see that if I go buy 100 pine trees, you know this will do this, and eventually, you know what, pine trees get really really big, so
Mhm.
then you can't see a damn thing. So and then now you're stuck with a, you know, I'm just gonna say a 10-year problem, lifetime after that. So,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
So,
They're pretty, but man, do they get big, and they get big fast, and then they block out everything that and I don't know,
mhm.
they seem now, do they create I know we talked a little bit about how pine trees like to grow in acidic soil. Do they create some of the
Yeah.
acidity in the soil by their presence? Because I've noticed usually there's not a lot that grows underneath pine trees.
No, it's just the nature of the soil that in the acidic soil,
Yeah.
they'll create their own kind of environment though, and then they'll off
Mm,
put everything. So that's same with oaks and everything like that. Those grow in more
okay,
acidic soils. So,
okay. That probably
mhm.
explains why you don't find morel mushrooms typically around
Yeah.
pine trees and oaks. That
I
makes
mean,
sense. I
I'll give a secret away. Basically, if you ever hunt an area that has a lot of uh you know pine trees, I'll just use that in general. So pine trees, I mean the soil is going to be more acidic than you think. So it's just that's the area it's growing, and some people
Mhm.
think, well, if I cut all this area out and plant, it's going to be tough because the soil. I can look at what's growing there already and then say, yep, it's acidic. You're gonna have to put lime in it already. You just know from walking out there.
You're
But
gonna invest in lime, a lot of it. You're
a
gonna
lot of
need.
It's what it is. So,
You're gonna need it. So
mm,
let's jump back on some of these screenings here. And I know there's no such thing as always and never.
mhm,
Because I know we had a farmer who planted sorghum. That's we talked a little bit off air. So everything I told you that was this plant was clover used to be sorghum back, that was one of the things he planted. Do you find or have you ran across that deer will eat this? Is this like a
yes,
last resort thing to them? All right.
mhm.
And it is and I'm assuming that would probably like it's going to if they got to revert back to like woody browse and stuff, they're probably going to start eating this too.
Oh
So
yeah, 100%. I Sorghum is what is in. I mean, the sorghum seeds are usually what's in bird seed, and everybody knows in the wintertime what shows up to your bird feeder outside is every
deer.
critter under the sun, squirrels and deer and bear, not bear, but um, deer, and you know that's what they're gonna eat. The little seed bud that pulls out of the top, birds will
Mhm.
annihilate that. So that
Okay.
is, yep, 100%.
Hmm.
Sorghum is good. Um, I mean, it offers, depending on the variety of sorghum, offers bigger leaves essentially to make it more thick for
Mhm.
your screening. So, but in that case, you can always have that issue of the deer eating the sorghum or snapping to get the seedlings down, or the birds landing on them, snapping them off, so on and so
Mhm.
forth. So it's very good. Milo is the same thing too, same type of plant per se. So, yep,
All right.
it's
So let's get dive into this and let's start it
okay.
off. And I think where I want to start off is you and I kind of talked a little bit, and I what I'm hearing is that there's three primary categories for screening:
Okay.
screening for the deer, screening for you, and then creating a funnel. Is what I'm hearing. There are three main categories for screening. Am I correct with that, or am I a little off?
No, I would say 3. You can say 3. I mean, 2, the 2 kinda go to hand in hand with the funneling. It's for the
Okay.
deer, but yeah, I could say 3, so yeah.
Okay.
If you
So
wanna, yeah.
let's dive into the screening for the deer. When we're creating screening for deer, what are we doing? What's the purpose behind this?
So the purpose behind it is basically to create a visual barrier. Now the best thing I can put is open fields. The best thing I've ever heard is, Tony LaPratt had a big, and I'm sure everybody's seen it on the, TikToks and Facebook and all that stuff. He talks about creating these rooms. Now, these rooms are essentially just areas that are screened, and then creating smaller areas so the deer can't see through, creating smaller areas so the deer has to move through all of your setup or your screened areas to visually see all the areas. Um, so he can check for does, or the does don't see each other if you have different doe families. And essentially what you're doing is creating a tighter area so deer feel more secure in a way. So they feel more, if there was hunting pressure of some kind or pressure from other deer, essentially they can go to these areas and feel secure, although they're really close by to each other in a sense. Um, so visually for that, um, and then bucks too, it's a security type feeling to them. Um, I mean, in a tighter area, as we all see as hunters, basically bucks always stay in the woods, the thickest part of the woods before, they come out into an open field or an open area, and they always scan to see what's out there first. So you create that illusion by making the screening in your area a smaller area so he doesn't have to spend so much time checking that area to make sure it's safe essentially for himself so he can exit to make his move to go on to the next area. So,
Yeah, I think that's what a lot of hunters mess up on is they don't understand the patience that some of these deer will have. They got all the
yep.
time in the world. They'll sit there and stand and they'll look at an area for a long time before they
Oh,
move
long
in.
time. Mhm.
A long time. And I've had this happen to me a couple times when I was young, when I was, still kind of learning the ropes, but it still happens today. It's not like it has not changed. They still do
Right.
what deer do. But I've got so antsy watching a buck before that he was just up above me and he's getting ready to come into an area, but he just stood there forever and
He
just
stood there
waited
probably till dark.
and
Yep.
waited until dark. And
Mhm.
I'm sitting there watching him like, come on, man, you just got to come out. He was like,
It
nope,
he
he was not.
Yeah. They didn't get that big by being dumb. So that's
No,
that's the
unfortunately.
easiest thing. So, That's why you
Unfortunately.
see that's why almost 9 times out of 10, where the first deer to run out and do an open field or a open food plot is going to be the yearlings. And then, the year and a half old does. And then the nanny does basically going to sit on the edge, do the same thing. Yep.
Mhm.
Everything's safe. I'll come out now. And
"Oh, they're
he'll,
still alive, I wanna go."
yep. Yep. So,
So when you said open field about using screening and breaking it up, it almost sounds like that's something you could also use for a large food plot too, to kind of break it into little sections as well.
yep.
And I think we touched on that in the large plot episode, but I guess we can go back into that real quickly on that too. So,
Yep.
um, if you're going to look at that, then let me ask you. So, I guess it really, first off, it's probably subjective based upon the size of plot that you're working with.
Correct. Yep.
But let's say you're working with a 1 to 2 acre larger plot, like
Okay.
I guess if you,
Yes.
your average, how often, how small would you break each one of those sections into?
Less than a half. I do about half acre.
About half acre per
Mhm.
section.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Only reason I say that is then you can create smaller areas. So based in this would be as a hunter too. If you create those smaller areas or different little pockets, say you divided a 2 acre field, um, basically in half and then in a quarter. You
Mhm.
basically break it into a quarter. And what that'll do for you then is you can set up different stand locations, and based on your wind, then you can set up on whatever the better wind and better little area is better for you.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And I think we
yep,
touched on it before in the bigger plot, but that's what I'm seeing. So obviously, I don't want people to get the idea. Oh, if I got a 5 acre plot, I just quarter it out and it'll do the
yeah,
same thing. It's subjective on it's going to change depending upon the size of the plot that
correct.
you're
You can
working
make them
at.
smaller. I mean, you could divide it into it eights. I mean, eight different sections. It's all based upon what you're trying to do and what the deer feel most comfortable with. Some deer like coming out in more open areas. Some deer like
Mhm.
coming out where it could be a 15-yard wide swath. It's a simple trail essentially. So
Right.
it's
That's what
it's
I
trial
was going.
it's trial and error is all I gotta say. It's hard to say this works perfect on this property yet. I go over somewhere else or I see somebody else doing something different and they're like, well, what he's doing, it doesn't work. So it won't work at all for anything. So it's all comes down to trial and error and how you think it should go. So
Well, that sounds familiar. I've heard
yeah.
that. "Oh, that doesn't work here. That doesn't work for me." And like, you
hmm
know what? You're probably right in some of the things you're saying, but that's why it's kind of trial and error. Like, as you said, like you got to find out what works best for you.
Correct.
Um, and work with it. It's not an overnight fix. Like I can't tell you that this is 100% going the way we do it is going to 100% work for you, but you'll
hmm
find that little way that it is going to work for you.
Yep.
You touched on another thing I wanted to touch on is how wide of an area or how wide of a swath are we looking at doing for screening?
So this could be suggested or um different for everybody too. Um so like field edges. Any I'm gonna just take a swing at this, but 9 times out of 10, most deer come out of the very corners where the two corners meet of a field
Mhm.
most of the time. So in that, then you could do a half moon shape, essentially. Basically, you create that little small pocket where they're gonna kind of sneak out of, and then utilize your screening to go kind of around the screening, essentially to go out to the bigger field. You could cut maybe you do a 20-yard wide swath from one end of the field to the other, a straight line straight across this field if you're allowed to do that, and then do your plot or whatever's in between your screening in the woods. Basically, that 20-yard swath means, anything that comes in there, it's already ranged to 20 yards. So, when they walk along the edge of the screen, you've already got that laid out, saying that if they walk along this, they're at 25 or 20 yards or 25 yards, whatever the distance is. So, it's kind of working in that way. And you're just breaking that field down to make it more of a secured feeling for all the deer before, yeah, so you have a
Okay.
better chance of having that buck go, "Hey, I can't see," you know, obviously he can't see more than 20 yards out just based on the terrain or whatever. I need to
Mhm.
get out into the plot, the one that's you're basically hunting before I can sneak out to go to the next. So, yep.
Now you can achieve this, obviously, like we talked about. You can achieve this both with either by planting something or mechanically. So, one
Yep.
of the things that comes in mind is like, so you have to go in and clear cut an area to
Mhm.
do your food plot in, right? So, what I'm seeing is that you can take your, if you have the implements, like obviously, this is, you have to have the implements to make this work. And I get
Yeah.
this. You can push or bulldoze those, I would not say bulldoze, but you can probably use a what they
You're
call
using
this,
just yeah,
a skid
you're essentially
steer,
you're
push all the trunks and stuff off to the side and start to
yep,
build that screen up. Yeah.
yep,
Yeah. So that's mechanical way you could probably do that too. So that's what I'm seeing there.
yep.
So basically, when we're looking at doing for the deer, we're trying to create security and also force them to kind of continue looking, especially during that rut phase where they're looking for does and we're looking for things out in those fields. It's going to force those bucks to kind of check each one of those rooms to make sure that, hey, there's nothing here. So,
Right.
all
Yep.
right, that makes sense.
You're making him travel more. So
Yeah.
he doesn't get hung up on an area he can already see,
Hmm.
whether it's in the woods, or anything like that. He has to visually check every area, scent check everything. And
Yes.
same with does too. So it's not just bucks, because does, if there's doe families, as I call them, basically,
Hmm.
they won't run into each other essentially. And then, the weaker doe out of that group or the non-dominant doe group will get pushed out. So,
Hmm.
and that might be the doe that's in heat at that time or
Yeah.
whatnot. So,
I
yep.
see that all the time. I had a good video of, or not video, but good picture just this year. Now I've got two doe families that came together and they were duking
They're
it out.
duking it out. Oh,
Here.
yes. Yep.
So that was like, I love watching that. Like, it's so funny because you don't think about it. Most people just think of bucks fighting, but I think I've
Yep.
seen more does fight than I have bucks. It's
Oh, yeah.
hilarious.
Those, man, in the summer and springtime, those are very territorial when it comes to their fawns dropping. That is a
Hmm.
big, big, big deal. So, yep.
I can imagine. And honestly, that in a human world, like as a police officer, like the worst
Oh,
fights I dealt with were
for
two women
women.
fighting. It was the worst fights I've dealt with. Like men, whatever. Like, that it is what it is. But man, when two women go at it, it's a whole other
It's
ball game.
it is all out. Yeah.
Like I've somebody once told me this, and obviously you don't, if somebody hears this, don't take this the wrong way. But I've heard this, like, men will just fight just to fight. Women will actually fight for a reason. So
Reason. Oh, yeah.
there's a
100%.
real reason behind it. So yeah, that's trust me, I've dealt with my fair share of both of those, and I'd much rather deal with men fighting than women.
Oh,
And it's
yep.
a lot easier to break up. Anyways, so now since we've talked a little bit about screening for deer, kind of the general idea about screening for deer, let's talk about screening for the hunter.
Okay.
And I got an idea what this is about, and I think most people do too.
Yep.
But I think there's probably some things that we can do right, some things we could do wrong with this. So
Yep.
let's hear from you, man.
So, as a hunter, screening as a hunter is essentially making yourself essentially invisible so the deer never know you're there. Your scent is one thing. I can't take care of that for you by doing
Mhm.
screening, anything like that. So in Michigan, one of the biggest things you see is a big tower blind sitting out in the middle of the field, wide open. Now, as if I was a deer, I would focus on that point all the time because
Mhm.
you'll know when he's there. I
Mhm.
They will watch you walk out to your blind. I mean that it you say it now and everybody's, oh, that makes sense. Well, why do you do it then? I mean, I get that if you're rifle hunting or something, that's one thing, but
Right.
where we are at in this lower portion, I mean, you're strictly down to straight wall cartridges and shotguns. So obviously your distance is way down. And you can see somebody in an open field at 200, 300 yards easily. And so can
Mhm.
the deer and so can every other animal. So with screening for that is essentially making whether you make a 10-foot wide or even a walking trail wide, if you can create a strip of cover of some kind, it doesn't matter whether it's done with seed or essentially just putting, like, I've seen equipment, people use farm equipment to kind of break up them walking out to their blinds. I mean, there's multitude of things. Essentially what you're doing is visually blocking yourself from the deer, making yourself more stealthy. So
Mhm.
I've seen screening used and I'd say seed wise, basically to they plant it right along the woods edge. Well, the reason being is essentially you have a trail that you come through the woods, and if you come up to a field, let's say a field edge or whatever, all that screening along the field edge, you can get to your stand and then you're above all your screening. So essentially you're
Hmm.
above where you need to be.
Hmm.
Now, all the deer come out in the field, you can get down from your stand and you just slowly walk back down the trail that you came. I mean, it's as easy as that. So
Right. And
now,
then they're none the wiser because they can't see you. And if the wind's in
correct.
your favor, they don't smell you.
Nope.
I mean, they might tolerate hearing you depending upon the time of year and,
Mhm.
what type of pressure they've been under. They might tolerate hearing you a little bit more than anything else, but they're definitely
Yep.
going to be on alert if they hear you going through. So I get trying to walk quiet through there.
Yep.
Um, Honestly, I think best case scenario for most people, especially if they have it. Now, this isn't everybody, right?
Nope.
Is if there's a creek that they have access to that's not too deep. Obviously, you don't want to be wearing one. Some people will.
Yep.
Some people will wear their waders, and that's how they'll access their areas. But
$100%.
if you got that creek bed, usually it's a little bit lower topography than the actual field
Mhm.
itself. Easy to kind of get some screening that doesn't have to be ginormous to cover you up. Plus, also helps with your ascent because you're down in the water.
Right.
Um, you don't leave much of a scent trail behind you down there, and then you can access it. That would probably be best case scenario. And I
Right.
think also adding in topography to that, like if you have a lower level, that you could walk, like to get to a certain area, just to get you down lower out of sight might help as well too.
Correct. And I've seen people use kayaks to get to their stands or whatnot, and they float down
People,
and then they set their kayak up on a bank or whatever, and then they can gain access that way just because it's simpler.
mhm,
Um, so with that, you know, you got to look at how the land, the terrain, everything's set up too. Like you said, if the deer are bedding up high up on hills and whatnot, just because that's where they're set up, doesn't make any sense to come from the bottom and work your way up. So
right.
essentially, you're going to have to look at the deer's advantage point and then go, okay, if they're sitting on this hill and they're looking down at me, I essentially have to find a taller screen or maybe even hinge cut some trees down, at 5, 6 feet, at least 7 feet, 8 feet, something like that to get that over your head as you're walking. You
Mhm,
essentially block their view of looking down at you.
mhm,
So, and then obviously if they bed low and you're high, you don't need as high as a high of cover. So it's almost the best way I can say to figure out if you need screening or not is have somebody stand out where the deer supposedly are
mhm.
and watch you walk to your stand. That will tell you exactly what the deer see.
That
It's that's I'll tell you right now, I've done a lot of that. Walk to your
that's
stand,
genius.
and they're like, "Well, you won't be able to see me." I guarantee you, I bet you I could. So, and sure enough, you can see, there'll be blips of seeing those people, but it's
Mhm,
those little blips. That's what the deer pick up on, that subtle movement of you
mhm.
walking through. Maybe the trees are blocking you as you walk through. So, but deer are very focused on that. Those little bit of movements that will
Yep.
set them off quicker than watching you walk in the wide open. So,
They may not be able to see very fine details, but they can definitely pick up movement very
yep.
easily.
And like wild turkeys too. I mean, I just had that last year. I just moved my gun ever so slightly just to move over to get a shot on one of the turkeys up here. I mean, they just all of a sudden they are just right on you.
What was that?
Yep, exactly.
Like, what was that?
Yep. So
I hate those birds. I
yeah,
I
they're dumb.
I
They're dumb, but they're super smart.
I don't even want to say they're dumb because it makes me feel dumber because I get outsmarted by them more often than not. So
Yep.
here I am. I got a bachelor's degree and I'm getting outsmarted by a freaking bird. I
Bird.
don't like. I don't
Yep.
like it. Um, but so one thing I've learned, and maybe I'll just throw this out here. So from my experience from being a trainer in law enforcement and stuff, especially if you're dealing with things that are up higher than you,
Yep.
this is where maybe when you build your screening, you don't make this truck wide area for you to walk in. That might be
Mhm.
one of those areas you want to keep smaller because when you deal with elevated, we'll say it threats, but you deal with something
Threats.
elevated,
Yep.
cover only works if you're hugging it. That's the only time we ever really tell people to hug cover
Okay.
is when you're dealing with an elevated threat because them looking down at you when you get close to that cover, it helps actually will help hide you more than if you're trying to walk away from it, like we've said. So if
Yep.
you run a 10 to 20 foot,
It
walking path
would probably see you.
wide,
Yep.
and you're walking down the center of it, they're probably going to see you. But if you can edge yourself closer and walk along that edge,
Mhm.
they'll probably help you out a little bit more. So that's my contribution to that conversation.
There you go. But see, but you figured it out though. So,
Yeah.
yep.
So, and that could help you. Obviously, like you said, you're going to need something that's high enough because you can't do that with a 5 foot barrier and expect that to work. Like that, not even that's going to work. Like at
No.
that point, you're going to have to crawl on your hands and knees still to even get there. And I'm not that dedicated.
No.
So
Keep it simple again.
I'm not
Yep.
I'm not that dedicated. Um, so what else about screening for yourself? We talked about making those pathways and in and also to get in and out of your area. I think that's probably a good way to kind of look at it.
Yep.
And just making sure that there's no breaks in that cover because like you said, and we all know this DRC movement. You can if you sit up next to a tree and don't move, you're probably more than likely the deer is going to go past you. Every now and again, they'll pick up on something like, what's that?
Silhouette of some kind or yeah. Yep.
Yeah. But for the most part, if they're not like already keyed onto you, they'll probably just walk right past you
Mhm.
until they get on top of you. And then it's like, oh, wait a minute, there's something there. So movement is key when it comes to the deer. I've also heard this, and I don't know how true this is, but there's some thoughts that deer can actually see the arrow in flight because of how quickly their eyes reset
Oh,
from
how
like
they
how our eyes will fire when I'm just gonna call it a cell. I don't know if it's a cone or a rod, one of those things. Whenever it fires, it takes a little bit for it to reset, but deers actually
yep.
reset really quick, so they actually can probably see motion a lot better than way better than we can, and can actually see the arrow in flight versus because some people argue they can hear the arrow in flight, but there's some schools of thoughts that they can actually see the arrow.
Yeah, I mean, that's possible. I've yet to hear that, but it makes sense. I
So
mean,
I mean, I know
the
it's
reaction time is insane. I've seen
yeah.
those videos of, you know,
Mhm.
the distance thing, and that was to me, that was more enlightening that why do I need to shoot 50, 60 yards? I mean, a lot of variables could happen, when it comes
Mhm.
to the wind or the deer reacting if they're very, very at like a high attention span there.
Mhm.
So knowing that, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, guys can make shots on those. I mean, you just have to anticipate what the deer is going to do and know, hey, I got to aim way lower because it's going to drop. So if put it at its belly, I can send it and, you know, hit something vital. So,
I've had a
and
deer completely wheel out of the way. Now it was a 50-yard shot. It was a while ago, but she completely wheeled, turned, wheeled, and was gone before the arrow
oh,
even got
yeah.
there. And I'm not shooting a trad bow. I mean, it was a little heavier arrow, about 500 grain arrow, but I'm still
Okay.
shooting 270, 280 feet per second. With
Yeah.
that
It's still
arrow, and
that's still cruising, but it's going to take it a good second or two before it hits there
mhm,
at, yep. So,
she had turned and was gone. I'm like, well, never mind.
yep. I hear you. So,
All right, so we've talked about screening for the deer. We talked about screening for people. So let's narrow down some of this funneling. Now, it sounds like when you were talking a little bit about building your screening for your larger plots, I almost
mhm.
created a funnel for them, like because you kind of gave them a pathway for them to walk out into the or kind of walk out of the field, which is essentially what funneling is supposed to do.
Yep.
So let's dive in that a little bit.
So, so funneling. So essentially, there's natural funneling, and then what basically you making the funnels yourself.
Mhm.
Natural funneling is more of the already made the deer trails already set up. They're usually, oh boy, it's usually due to terrain, more or less, or the cover around them. The deer are going
Mhm.
to take the path of least resistance. That's naturally what they do. So, um, down hillsides, they're going to always come down to the most levelest ground. Um, you know, One thing with funneling, then I guess there's the natural and then man-made. When you're doing it out, we'll go back out to the open again. Um, Funneling is essentially you creating that point to bring them in where they can't go anywhere else but there because it's the simplest way, it's the easiest way for them. So, along with having those open areas, essentially, you are making them. I I use them as doorways, the way they can go in and out. And essentially,
Okay.
that's what you're
Mhm.
trying to do is create these doorways so they're either going to come from one end or the other, or you focal the point down, pinching them, making the pinch point of they have to come here. Otherwise, they're going to go through thick stuff, which sometimes they do, but for the most part, or in an emergency when they are panicked, they're going to
Mhm.
go to that point. So, utilizing screening to push them into that point. So, another way too, um, I watched something Mark Kenyon was talking about too, and it was kind of it made sense. But say you have multiple deer trails coming to a certain area through the woods or whatever. You got
Mhm.
multiple coming from bedding to basically a food plot or destination area that they're trying to go, and you hunt in the woods essentially. If you can essentially block off certain trails by either hinge cutting or putting things in their way that mm, forces them to use this other trail, that you have a better tree, a better access point to get to. If you mechanically or basically you go out there and you physically block off areas that they can't go through, and it
Mhm.
you funnel them into the area because they're always going to want to go, say, a cornfield. They always want to take this way, and you block off all other areas, and this is the only point they're going to drive through. That's essentially you're making that pinch point mechanically to drive them into this area because of your the way you can access your stand. You know, this puts you in a better advantage, of seeing those deer come through, and it makes their travel essentially just better. So
Mhm.
for you and them.
Yeah, I mean, deer are
So,
lazy. They're like us. They're not gonna
yeah.
go through stuff they don't have to. Like, I don't like going through briars, neither do they.
No.
They
And I've
they
seen, yep,
I don't
going through, like, swamps, we got a couple areas that got a bunch of tall cattails. They're gonna bed
uh
out there. If in the summertime or just before hunting season, you go out there and if you take a weed whip or something and create a walking path, it does not have to be very big, but if you create that walking path, deer are going to take that path. I
Mhm.
People can argue up and down, no, that's not good. They're going to take the path of just ease. That
Right.
if you can make a path out of these cattails directly to your stand or just off to your
Mhm.
stand, I mean, they're going to take it. I I
They
will
will.
almost guarantee
They
that.
will. As long as you're not on it every day, they'll take it, because if they
Yep,
start to pick up that
100%.
you're there every day, they smell you every day, they're not gonna take that because they know, something's not right here.
Mhm.
So if you have another access, you need another. So here's the thing where people make a mistake about that there. So they go in, they're like, "All right, so I'm gonna cut this trail and I expect deer to be on it today." It's
Nope,
not necessarily the
nope.
case. That's not gonna happen. It's gonna take them a while to find it. Like, once they find it and they realize, "Oh, this works," then they'll start using it because they're gonna smell, they're gonna smell their scent every time they come through there. They
Mhm.
know this is the way we need to go. That's fallacy number 1. You think that immediately is going to work, right? It's not going
Right.
to. So don't expect immediate results from that. Number 2 is if you're also using that for your access, deer smell
Oh,
you, they smell
they're
you, and if they keep smelling you coming
mhm,
through there, they're gonna avoid that for the most part.
correct.
For the most part. We could probably make a few arguments about some other things that,
Yeah.
that
Oh,
they will it doesn't bother them as much, but for the most part, if they keep smelling you in there, they're not coming back to that.
correct. And that's why even if you made several trails to a certain point, you could create those several different trails and say you use this trail over here. Deer won't take that trail, but they're going to take the other two to get to this point. So, not
Mhm.
saying that you have to make one trail, but maybe make multiple trails from different locations. But essentially, you are bringing them in to an area that you can get a shot off, no matter what trail they come in through that you created, essentially. So,
Doesn't have to be perfect, but think of it like smoke,
yeah,
like, spokes on a wheel. Like, you have these different trails that come into one certain spot to
circle.
where you were at, and
Exactly.
that's how you look at it. Like, where's the hub? Where would be the axle on this wheel? And that's
Hmm.
where you wanna set up at, because that's where all these trails are converging at.
Yep.
They're not always gonna use the same trail, so, I mean,
No.
they will for somewhat, but, they if there's any variance, eventually they will come through that spot there. So, and that's like almost like a natural funnel too. Is like that's just where all these trails converge at, is right here. And
Hmm.
find that hub, find that at where you say the axle, where the axle would go, and that's where you want to set up at, or somewhere around
Correct.
there.
Yep. And
Um,
sometimes using natural ones, going back to it, is, ponds or lakes or anything like that too. Using those because most of the most of the time deer aren't gonna go right they're not gonna go across the pond. They're not gonna do anything like that. In
no,
weird situations they could, but pinching them off as the the pond wraps around, if you can set off, you're pinching them into that point between you and where the natural barrier is, so,
right.
yep.
When it comes to emergency and deer or running, there's all
They're
bets are
gonna
off, right?
Yes. Yep.
I'm not proud to admit this, but there was a time I was chasing somebody when I was working as a police officer, and I was really focused on chasing this person, and we ended up running through this brick factory. He had a warrant, so I was chasing after him, and I was focused on him. I literally ran off a loading dock. It was too late before I noticed it was coming
Yeah.
up to it. I ran right off of it, and I use that analogy just to basically say, like, when deer are running, that can happen. Yeah, they probably have some trails they normally would stick to, but their number one thing is to get away. And it
Wait.
doesn't really
Yep.
like so obstacles getting away. I've tripped over hedges before chasing after people. I've watched people clothesline themselves on literal
Yeah.
clotheslines. Like there's just things that get in the way when you're running. And this is where when you see deer do odd stuff they wouldn't normally do. Oh, that deer ran into a pond. Well, probably didn't mean to, but
No.
it just got in the way.
They're
Um,
hyper focused on what they're doing because that adrenaline's running through them. So,
yeah.
and like I
So
said, if you can create those points of visually on each side, this is where I need to go, then essentially they're gonna go that way. Because it's like you said, when you're running, I'm gonna go this way because I can see a long ways in front of me. That's where I'm
mhm.
going. So,
That's where I'm going.
mhm.
I got one spot, and speaking of ponds, there's this one spot that on the other side, it's a dam is what it is. It's a
Okay.
dam that they put in to put this pond in, and it's old. It's been there forever. And I always think that I'm going to catch a deer walking across this. It's going to happen because on one side is the pond, and on the other side is a pretty decent drop off. Like it's
Okay.
15 feet, right? It's pretty decent. It's pretty steep. Could a deer walk it? Yeah, they could. I mean, I could
It's
walk it,
not
but
gonna be easy, but yeah. Okay.
what's my number one choice? It's gonna be walking across that
Yep.
flat.
Yep. Yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm yet to I get photos of deer going through there. I'm yet to catch one actually when I'm hunting. I'm like, it's going to happen. Like, it's like, it's just one of those funnels that you think has gotta work. Like, eventually
Yep.
somebody's gotta do this. So,
Yep.
uh, but yeah,
That's
I get
hard
that.
too. We have a
Mhm,
drainage ditch too, and most of the deer just walk the edges and they just stay along the edges and they get to it's one point that they cross. And it's
mhm,
just because it's the most shallowest point and that's what they do. It's
yep.
so and they just take the edges and they just stay right on the edges. They do not cross unless they have to. So,
I don't blame
yep.
them.
Yep.
Well, man, I think we covered a good bit. I mean, screening is one of those topics I think we can really get into the weeds on, but I think we give a pretty good idea when it comes to screening some things and, a good roadmap. Start off cheaper for yourself, stay with the annuals at, some of those annual plants. Look at something that's going to give you a good height, good growth, and good coverage, something that's got a good broad leaf. We talked about sorghum, Milo, things like that. Um, and just create those paths to and from your stands or also to break up some of your larger plots to make rooms as you used to call them. I think that's a good analogy is making those rooms.
Yep.
What else you want to cover on this? Did we miss anything that's kind of important on that or
No, and like I said, screening it it's effective on the right property per se.
Mhm.
You don't need to have it just because somebody else does it. Hinge cutting, I've seen where people go in and they cut down half the woods and now the deer don't travel through it. And it's just one of those things of sometimes start with something to see if it works essentially. And that's why I always prefer people start with annuals before you go right to the top shelf, you know, putting in trees or putting in dogwood or, you know, all these different types of setups. I don't know how to put it, but
right?
it it tells you what the deer are gonna how they're gonna react essentially. So um that go ahead.
So that sounds like a mistake that people make. What are some other what if you're going to name a couple other mistakes that people make when it comes to screening outside of like going grand scale without knowing if it's even going to work for you? What are some
Mhm.
other like watch outs or mistakes you see people do?
Um one of the biggest ones I've seen with screening is there I would say more of the design and what they think they need to screen off. You can do too much screening essentially, where you can divide. One of them was a field. They did too wide a screen. Now, essentially what happened was it put them out of place of where they could get their shots off. Um, it was way too wide. Th Basically, they wanted them to I'm trying to put it into terms how they it was too far shots. They made their
Mhm.
screen way too wide, and then they were bow hunting, and essentially it turned into not only like 50-yard shot at the longest, but now the deer are farther out, and it turns into a lot longer shot, so for
Yep.
archery. So, keep them respectful. Usually, I say about 5 to 10 feet wide is all you want your, screen widths if you're gonna make these rooms or whatnot, or even along a field edge. So, because if
Mhm.
you do it too far out, you're gonna kinda screw up essentially what the buck wants to take. Bucks are gonna take the field edge. They take along the field edge. So, if you step that out maybe, let's say 15 yards off the field edge, then they're gonna cut and take that path, and then they can hit their scrapes as they're moving along. Um, there's there's a multitude of different ways of making them too big or, you know, basically you can overdo screening,
Mhm.
essentially. People said,
Yeah.
"No, you can't." You can overdo it. So you can put way too much into it and then you can't see, and sometimes too much screening, too much security, the deer feel like, "Oh my gosh, I can bed here, and then I'm just gonna go off to my other spots." So,
Mhm. Yeah, like, I
yeah,
could see that being a problem too, is it's like, "Oh, this is a great place to bed. I'm gonna stay here." And then
yep,
now that totally defeated the whole purpose of what you're doing, because
purpose.
now you're gonna spook them out of there because you're trying to go where you're going,
Yeah.
and they're sleeping there.
And there's and then I should say though, but sometimes some areas don't have bedding and you want to create that bedding and
Mhm.
utilizing screening, you can create that area for just bedding. So now to,
Right,
now to hunt that area too is going to be based upon, what your access and everything from that. So,
right.
but if you're doing it for more or less creating travel and all that stuff, you got to think about a little bit farther ahead of what I'm doing with this.
Hello, everyone. This is Sean Smith of the Chasing Your Experience podcast. We interrupt this episode to let you in on some exciting news. If you're looking to upgrade your mock scrape game this year, then head over to scrapedoctor.com and fill your carts full of scrape magic, maybe a poison ivy or two, just a rope squared, or even just a rope. And then enter the code Country Fried 10. That's Country Fried, spelled with a K, the number 10, and save yourself a little bit of money. And now, back to the pod.
So,
That's something I didn't really think about though, like until you just said that. And I mean, people do it. We've done it, and I never really looked at it that way. But also, but using screening to create bedding, I never
yep,
thought about that. But I talked about we hinge cut and we created bedding. That's what the whole idea we were hinge cutting was to create more of a thicker area that allowed for a lot of new growth. So there's some more browse for the deer, and also created a better bedding location for the deer. But I
correct.
never really thought about that. But yeah, going and
Yeah,
planting your own bedding areas and
yep. Like here in the
obviously.
north, I mean, if you, a lot of times the deer are gonna bed into, they created like pine rows or whatnot,
Mhm,
or Christmas tree farms. That's one of our biggest things around here is Christmas tree farms.
mhm,
There's a ton of deer that bed down in there. One, it's nice to get out of the wind and they can, bed down in these areas. So I mean, essentially, you could set up an area for that. You do a row of pines and whatnot, and they'll bed in that in those high wind situations and when it's extremely cold, just because of the thermals and everything like that. So
mhm.
essentially, when you're screening with, essentially with plants or whatever, you're accomplishing kind of the same goal, but you can create smaller areas for them to move and hide, and it's more of the same thing, the illusion, the visible aspect of everything of just hiding
Right.
in there, but you gotta create a big enough area, essentially, too, so it can't
Mhm.
be, you know, a 20-yard by 20-yard area, and that's their bedding area. It it's got to have some size to it. So
Doesn't work like that. It does not work
yeah,
like that.
no,
You know, they'll bed somewhere in that area, but they don't keep coming back to the same exact spot every time. So
correct.
for the most part, I'm sure there's some deer out there that does it, but so like, oh, it's this. I had a deer. He came back the same spot every time.
They
That's
did.
how I got him. He was a
Yep.
saint. His bed was dug out in the dirt. He came back there every day.
They did.
Well,
Yep.
okay.
Yep. Deer
I'm
are just
sure.
like people. We're all different in what we like. So you just got to figure out for that deer or that buck or that doe what they need and
Mhm.
start building the plan around that.
And unfortunately, most of the farms that we deal with these days, and I hate to say this, you know, I think most people need to hear this. So, like, if you have a deer that's showing up on your farm, more than likely he's showing up on other people's farms. He's not necessarily on your farm. You might be lucky that
Oh,
he's betting on you or they're betting on you, but also those deer are traveling to other farms, especially in
yep.
today's market. Because I can't tell you how many times you start. I don't know if Michigan's the same way, but here in Ohio, like you'll see these signs. Oh, we have a 400-acre farm going on auction, broken down into 20 plots or 20 different I guess we'll call it plots or what do they call 'em? Parcels,
Parcels.
20 different
Parcels.
parcels.
Yep.
So all these large farms are getting broken down into smaller parcels, which means, you can look at a deer, it's got like a 2-mile radius that is their area.
It's
That's what they hang out in.
mm-hmm.
And I'm sorry, even 400 acres isn't covering that 200 that
No.
2 miles.
No.
So they're going to other places. All you're trying to do is create the best environment you can for them to entice them to kind of stay with you. But do know this, they're going other places.
Oh,
Um,
100%.
one of the deer we were after, I had a lot of good photos of him last year. Didn't get any photos of him this year that I'm aware of. And somebody actually shot him this year, beginning of November. And I'm told it was about 2 miles away from where our farm was. So, and he was an older deer, which surprised me that he was traveling that much, but he must have found the right thing. And that's where he was at.
Yep. Because he's
So,
probably stayed there. It wasn't on your land. So,
it is what it is.
yep.
Well, man, I think we covered a good bit of stuff. I think we give them a good breakdown of things. And screening is one of those things I don't think we need to overdo, but we can at least get some ideas out there,
Yeah.
what to look at, what to do, and how to create it. So,
Yep.
if they're going to come to Red Light Food Plot Seed Company, what are they looking for your screening? What do you call it?
Hide and seek is my specific one that I have. It's got Sasquatch on there, that's a funny story too. So, guys from
Well,
work came up with that one. It is, yeah, everybody loves that one. So,
we've got a little bit of time. What's the story behind that? If you don't
all
mind
right.
sharing.
So, a couple guys that I used to work with basically came up with the idea of, Sasquatch is, he's the hide and seek king. So, that's how all that, and they were obsessed with him. They'd have shirts made up and all that stuff. So, and then I basically came up with a name and somebody integrated basically Sasquatch, and he's still the hide and seek king. Nobody's ever found him. So if I can hide him, so that's it was the dumbest thing ever. And I was like, wow, that really fits.
It actually works. I want to use it.
Yep.
Many have tried, none have succeeded. So,
Right. So it's an annual screen, and that's, like I said, that's what I prefer. I have mixed around a little bit of the ideas of having pre-annual screens. Um, the only thing is those take a lot of time. You got to really take care of those ones in the beginning while they're growing.
okay,
Like you got to add simazine, everything for the pre-emergent and everything, so they get a good jump start. And then once they get going, they're pretty easily maintainable.
okay,
But like I said, we'll just keep going back to the annuals. You want to see how everything reacts, essentially. So,
yeah.
and the
No,
annuals, the annuals blend mix I got grows really fast. I've had it grow as high as 8 feet, 9 feet. So,
that'll
and
do.
then it'll do just fine. So,
There's a lot of
so
people that don't hunt
it
that
does
high.
very, very well. So,
Like
yeah.
I say, there's a lot of people that don't even hunt that high. They 8, 9
No.
feet. That's getting up very high for them.
Yeah, it does a great job, especially when guys are just before hunting season and they're cruising around. We've had, well, I guess I could just another reason to screen. We've had gentlemen that like to drive by our property and then shine in the middle of the night or whatnot.
Mhm.
So screening along the road and 9 feet, it's kind of hard to see through. So take took care of that problem. So
Ha got you.
yep,
Next thing you know, they're coming over with a drone.
yep, yep.
That's
They
that's the next thing you
screening
have to
from
work on
people.
is
Yep,
this
screening
next thing
from
you have to
people.
work on. How do we screen the top now?
Yep, yep. So we've had
Oh.
actually a couple of trespassers too that would like to shoot out of guys' trucks. There was a property up north that they were asking what they can do. I said the
Mm.
fastest way is put some of the screen down and you'll block their shot basically from basically their truck. So
Yeah,
it's
that's
it's
what
it's crazy.
that's one of those things I've contemplated myself. And if I'm going through areas, I don't own a lot. Like it is what it is. But if I look at it, I look at something like, man, if I owned this, I would run screening all the way down the roadside of this because you could see into it. I'm like, I don't want to be able to
Mhm.
see anything there, like nothing. You don't
Right.
need to. In today's world, like I think right now, the big thing with poachers is crossbows and thermal scopes. They go out with their
Oh.
crossbow that's got a thermal scope on it and
Mhm.
smoke deer. I don't understand poaching. I don't like here's to me, and I don't and what we're gonna close this out, but
Yep. You're good.
I don't understand this because you can't share that with anybody. Like you can't y-
No.
the ones I mean the ones who try they all get caught. Someone eventually turns them in. CJ Alexander's another good one who
Yep.
poached a deer. He shot a ginormous freaking typical
Yeah.
white-tailed buck and it all came out.
Right.
Like you can't like it's
Yes.
I don't understand it. Even if you have an obsession for big deer, like I get that, but where's the you can't share it. No one will ever know other than your very close friends that you hope don't roll on you.
Yeah.
And don't and
Exactly.
don't make your spouse mad because that's the first thing they're telling everybody. It's like, "Hey, you
Yeah.
killed here
Yeah.
here's
She's gonna turn you in. Yep.
they're gonna turn you
Yeah.
in."
Yeah.
So,
And that's it. Yeah. I never understood that. Because then you destroyed what you thought was a trophy is now basically it's not anymore because you wrecked it. I mean,
no, you did.
yeah,
And, whatever. And poachers, if you do this, then I hope you get caught and you get the worst penalties ever.
yep. It's
Yeah, I say worst maximum penalties because it's bullshit.
it's yes,
To be
it
honest with
is.
you, it's bullshit.
It's not that hard. Come on now, like
It's not,
like
and I understand people are losing access, things like that. But there's ways you can manage it as best you can. But big deer, big animals. Period. Doesn't have to be deer. It could be elk. It could be
yeah,
turkey. It could be bear. It could be whatever. A big animal makes people do some really dumb things if
yep,
if they allow it to happen. So
yep.
oh well. Oh well. Anyways,
Part of a problem. Yep. But if you
we're
put
not going to
screening up, you'll take care of some of that problem.
They're
So
gonna take care of that some of that problem. They ain't gonna
yep.
be able to see what's going on there. So,
Hmm.
well, Tony, man, we're going on an hour on this one. I think it's about time to close this one out. Is there anything else you want to touch on before we put the axe to this one?
No, I'm excited for the next episode though. So
Me too.
you
You and I,
definitely have to watch that one. So
yeah, yeah. Well, you and I, we're gonna have some off-air conversations over the next couple
mhm.
weeks to kind of put this together, how this is gonna work. But I'm looking forward to that one because that's gonna be a big. I don't know if I want to go into what it's going to be,
No,
but you definitely
they gotta figure it out on their own. But
you're
it'll be very very exciting and very informative. So
that is going to be, and I'm sure there's going to be. Yeah, it's going to be good. I'm
eh,
looking forward to it, man. I'm looking forward to it. Well, Tony, as always, I appreciate you taking time out of your day to come and talk to us and spread your knowledge and especially with these last couple of episodes and agreeing to do these in little mini parts because I like breaking the stuff down like that. And I think it
yeah,
helps people understand things and it gives us more time to actually talk about a particular subject versus trying to be a big overall thing. So
yep.
I
We can
definitely appreciate you, man.
yes. No, it's always this has been a blast. So talking about stuff I love doing. So and hunting in general. I love talking to just hunting about anything. So um you know, putting these little mini episodes and everything together. So it's nice we can go in more detail on certain areas. So
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
definitely definitely worth it. So
Absolutely. Well, Tony, hopefully you can get out there in Michigan and shoot yourself a monster Michigan buck here before the season
yeah.
closes up, or before you guys end up buried in snow, because that's coming.
Yeah, have to slide to our stands.
All right. Well, Tony, where can people find you at? I know we do it in every episode, but let's do it again. Where can they find you at?
You can go to Red Light on Facebook and Instagram. And then I can put the website up. Just search Google right now and then type in Red Light Food Plot Seed. And it'll bring you right to our website. So it's still under construction a little bit, but it'll bring you to the website that's currently up now.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I know you were working on it last time we talked. I don't know
Yep.
if there's been any updates to that, or if that's up and rolling yet. So
No, it's winter time. We really got to dial it in first before we can give you the big show there.
yeah, I know. I'm sorry. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I appreciate you for taking the time out of your day to sit and listen to us talk for the last hour. And this was all about screening. We talked a lot about the screening for deer, screening for the hunter, and also some of that natural or man-made funneling to help you in your pursuit of the game that you are chasing. With that being said, we don't take this lightly that you spent the last hour with us. And I know I ask all the time, but if you would please rate and review the show, share it with your friends, and make sure you follow it on the podcast platform of your choice. Make sure you check Tony out at all his socials, and also check us out on Instagram and TikTok. Don't go to Facebook. There's a page there. No one checks it though. But you can check us out on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors. TikTok is Country Fried Outdoors as well. Both of those are spelled with a K. You can find us on YouTube at Country Fried Outdoor Productions. The podcast airs on Spotify, Apple, iHeartRadio. What else is there? Amazon and YouTube. And you will find the video feed on Spotify and YouTube currently. With that being said, ladies and gentlemen, until our experiences cross paths again, may you have the courage to fail, but yet the humility to learn. And as always, we hope you stay safe out there, and God bless you. Thank you for listening to the Country Fried Outdoors Chasing Your Experience podcast. Before you go, don't forget to leave us a review and follow the show on the podcast platform of your choice. Are you hungry for more Country Fried Outdoors? Then follow us on Instagram at Country Fried Outdoors, or subscribe to our YouTube channel at Country Fried Outdoor Productions.